Okay, this one's going to be an interesting one because do you know what? Being a kid isn't easy, is it? Because we're not emotionally developed. Really, I'm not even emotionally developed at my age, and I'm a middle-aged man. We're always learning. We're children of God and all that. But that aside, what we're talking about today is quite serious. When I say serious, it's actually quite upsetting and traumatic because I don't know what your life experiences are like, you watching, but we've got a young man now who's experienced extreme trauma, and he was only a little boy. He's a guest on our show today, and his name's Fernando. I'm not going to say too much because I want him to tell you the story, so stick around because this is going to get very, very interesting.
Analyzing the news.
Okay, we've got Fernando with us now. He's here, and this is not being edited at all. So, with that said, Fernando, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. I'm blessed, man. I can't complain.
I
Thank you
like
for
that.
asking.
Do you know what? That's a good thing, that. You know, when people say I'm blessed, just by saying that is very powerful, isn't it?
Definitely.
I always say
Definitely.
that to my kids. I always say, because my kids used to say, I never get anything I want. I'm dead unlucky. I say, well, just turn it around and say, I'm dead lucky, me. And they started doing it. And then they started to become very lucky. So you saying I'm blessed is the same thing. You're almost giving yourself power. But again, mate, we're not. That's all nice and positive, okay? Because you've come to a clear understanding that you've become self-aware, self-developed. Your mind's matured. Again, probably due to the experiences that you've had to go through. So what I want you to do, mate, in your own time, is just tell us your story.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Fernando Lennon. I'm a 43-year-old father, husband, mentor, teacher. I'm like the Swiss Army knife of my family. I do it all. Um, Essentially, I was born in Columbus, Georgia, to two parents that were both in the military. My father was in the Army, and my mother was in the Army Reserves. Well, they went through a terrible rough patch at the very beginning. Was a lot of fighting going on, a lot of back and forth, and my father started using illegal substances, and he ended up getting out of the Army. My mother also, and he ended up moving down to Miami, Florida, and the drug use was out of control. But as a little boy, I had no idea of the drug use, of the serious drug use that my father was engaging in. So my mother decided to leave. She planned on bringing my sister and I with her, but at the last minute, I snatched away from her and grabbed my dad's leg, and I told her I wasn't leaving my father. So she ended up leaving, and life as I know it spiraled out of control. We lost everything.
So
We
go
lost.
going back a little bit, okay, because this is a big story, by the way. But this is huge. I'm talking to the audience here. This is huge, and when you've got a big story to tell, it's almost sometimes hard to get it out. That's why Fernando's written a book, which we'll get into later. But we've only got an hour, so tell me, Fernando. So you're a young lad. How old are you at the time when you're with your parents and they're together and they're in the forces?
Well, from birth all the way up until the age of 8, 9 years old, that's when the breakup
Right.
began.
And were you living on an army base with your parents?
Well, initially, yes, but then once everything came to a head and my father was discharged from the army, we ended up moving down to his hometown, which was Miami, Florida, and moving into an apartment.
So you know when you were younger, I'm going back to when you were. This is before the discharge. What was life like when it was you? Have you got siblings as well, brothers and
Yes,
sisters?
I have a younger sister. Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So your automatic response is to protect your little sister.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And
So
life was great.
mm,
Other than my parents fighting constantly.
yeah.
Outside of that, though, my experiences with with my sister were great.
Mm,
We would take long bike rides all around the military base.
yeah,
Um, we would have fun. We pretty much had a happy childhood around that time.
yeah. And so again, it's difficult to articulate because you were so young, so things aren't as clear. But could you, looking back, can you remember when you started to see shifts, changes in the relationship between your parents?
Around 5 and 6 years old,
Mm,
that's when I started noticing the infighting. I started noticing um, the different dynamics.
yeah.
They had other things going on outside of their relationship,
Mm.
so it pulled them apart. And I can tell it was noticeable. I just tried to turn a blind eye to it. I was very nosy as a child, so certain things I would keep an eye on or I'll keep a listening ear out for.
It's interesting that you're aware, even at that young age, that something's, and maybe that's because you've got responsibility to an extent. You've got your little sister, so you're more hyper vigilant. In that case, okay. So then, what happened? What started to happen then?
So one thing I will say is the reason why I was able to remember a lot of the vivid images or the vivid incidents that were taking place was because when you experience trauma at a young age, when you see your parents physically fighting, it does something to you internally. So therefore, my long-term memory is immaculate. My short-term memory, that's another thing. That's something totally different. But my long-term memory was tremendous. I can remember the clothes, the attire that I had on during certain incidents to the food that I ate back then. Um, so when they started to physically fight, that's when I could see that there was a big shift that was about to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that note as well, mate. Again, in life, we've all had nice experiences and we've had nice days out, but we can't really remember them. You can't remember the holidays and the fun times. You remember when you suffer, don't you?
Right.
And you think, well, why do
Right.
we only remember the suffering? Because
Right.
it's traumatic. Now, as an adult, you can sort of get through it because you're emotionally mature. But you, as a little boy, and I'm not trying to upset you, mate, and I appreciate you talking about this because it's good.
Right.
As a little boy, your brain can't compromise what's going on because you're a little boy and you can't look after yourself. And you look at your parents, and the people who are trying to protect you are fighting each other. You won't understand what that is. Looking back, you think, okay, people don't get on or whatever. But you're a little boy. You're like, it's like God fighting with Satan. Well, even that we understand, don't we? But when you're a little boy, you wouldn't understand what's going on. Why are the people that care for me hurting each other? And that's going to obviously create fear. What I want to do, we're going to continue this. I'm going to get deeper. We're just slowing it down. But I want to ask people who are watching this as well, because obviously I'm sure people at home have experienced certain levels of trauma in their life. And again, did they experience it when they were younger? If you did, let me know in the comments. I want to know what you think. Okay, we're going to get further into this with Fernando. If you just said a plate just dropped, because I can hear it, I think my wife's dropped something. But you might not be able to pick it up in this microphone. Oh, she's probably done something. I don't know. But anyway, sorry. Again, this is not being edited. Have you experienced some sort of trauma when you were a child? And if you have, you don't have to be specific. Just give a simple yes or no, because this is a lot more common than you think. Now, some people think, well, I've not experienced any trauma. Trauma can be anything, and it can happen once. If you see your father slap your mother, that will traumatize you, and it won't leave you. It'll just rest in your unconscious mind, and you might not even be aware of it. But it's like a cancer, it can grow, and you've got to be aware of that. That's why we have these conversations, and people like Fernando are very brave for sharing what he's about to share with us. And again, we appreciate that. But again, put your thoughts in comments. Let's get back to Fernando. Thanks, mate. I do appreciate that. So I'm not sorry for interrupting you. It's because it's interactive, okay? Because you're helping people. So go on. What happened then, mate?
So when we moved down to his home, my father's hometown of
Mm,
Miami, Florida, uh, we were in the apartment for a couple of months, and my mother had got fed up. She hadn't had enough. So she came up with a plan to finally leave my father in. The bags were packed, ready to go. We were waiting for a taxi, and my father was in the room asleep, and apparently I went into the room to wake my father up, and he came out of the living room and he asked my mother where were we going. And my mother's, told me we were leaving. So my father was like, "Well, you're not taking my kids anywhere." And the taxi came downstairs. She was getting ready to leave, and I snatched away from her, ran and grabbed my father's leg, and said, "I'm not leaving my dad." So she gave a look. She thought about it. I know she was pressed for time because of the way she was motioning out of the door, and she went downstairs and left. Um, from there, slowly but surely, things started to change inside of the apartment. Things started coming up missing. So I know my father was taking the things and, selling a lot of the items to, pay some of the bills and things of that nature. But what I would find out after the fact was he was taking some of the items and taking them to various pawn shops to support his drug habit. So we end up losing the apartment after a couple of months, and we ended up moving in with my grandmother, which is his mother. And we lived with them for a couple of months, and needless to say, there was some thievery going on in my grandmother's house. He was still addicted to drugs, so he was supporting his habit by taking things around my grandmother's house and pawning those things as well. Um, to the point where I started picking up some of those bad habits as well. I didn't use drugs, but um, at that age, I had a distorted view of reality. I figured, oh well, if my father is doing this, let me try my hand at that. So I started taking a couple of items from my grandmother's house as
Yeah.
well.
And
And they got fed up and they told us that we basically have to find somewhere to go. I know that my grandparents were okay with me staying possibly, but again, I would not leave my father. So we found something called an efficiency. An efficiency is like a small one bedroom um, structure. It's usually attached to a bigger house. So my father rented out an efficiency, and I would say it was less than 300 feet. So 300 cubic inches. So it's very small. So as soon as you go into the efficiency, you have the living room, you have the kitchen area that's right there in the living room, you have a bathroom area, and that's about it. So um, it was so small to the point where once you go in, you didn't have time to change your mind.
can,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So um, that was an experience within itself because before that time, when my parents were in the military, I had the best of everything.
Can,
I didn't want.
can I ask you, mate?
Go. Mhm.
What do you looking back now? Because obviously you had like this really strong connect attachment towards your father. Because you've got your nan. Everyone loves their nan, don't they? And then you've got your
Right.
mother, which is your mother, which usually is the most strongest attachment. But yours seemed to be towards your father. Why, looking back now, why would you think that? Well, why was that? Why was such what why was the attachment so strong?
Well, with my mother, my mother was different. My mother grew up around all boys. She had a lot of brothers, and she was a little rough around the edges. She made sure that we were safe, but a lot of the nurturing aspect of parenting, she wasn't really well versed in it. She was learning. You know, um, she didn't really have something to go off of as far as how parents should parent. So she was doing the best she could. You know.
It's called maternal instinct. Some, believe it or not, some people haven't got it. Some parents haven't got that maternal instinct. unfortunately. And by what you've just said, your mum was more over there instead of more maternal in towards you for whatever reason. But so you felt safer with your father.
But then my father was my hero. You
Yeah, yeah.
know, military man. He was a sergeant in the army.
Wow.
Um, I looked up to him. He was my hero. So at the end of the day, a boy is naturally going to be more drawn toward their father
Yeah,
for
I
the most
agree.
part.
I agree.
I never seen outside of the fights between my mother and my father. I had never seen my dad engage in any other disappointing acts. I mean, from my point of view at that time.
Mm.
So I didn't understand why my mother would decide to leave. I just felt, I felt that, oh, well, she's unhappy for whatever reason. All right, well, she wants to leave, she can leave. But I'm gonna stay here with my dad. But
Yeah,
knowing what I found, finding out what I found out as far as the drug use is
mm.
concerned, maybe I would have made a different decision,
Yeah,
but I'm not even sure.
yeah.
Because at the same time, in hindsight, looking at it, everything that I went through
Mm.
brought me to being who I became today.
Absolutely. We're going to get into that later as well as we go along. So there's you, the baby, the little boy, little Fernando, right? He's only a kid for crying it loud. He's a baby. He's a kid, isn't he? Doesn't know. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's looking up at his dad, who's like Superman, and he literally is Superman. He's high ranking the forces. So obviously he's got discipline. He's an alpha male. You don't get to that level without being a top dog. And you're a little boy, and you're looking at everyone else's dads, and you're thinking, my dad could batter you. And again, you're gonna have this awe to this man. And you said when your dad's out and about, he was all right. It was just when he was around your mother, that's when you saw this darker side, but you never saw it. And was he back then? Was he sociable? Did he get on with people? Did he have lots of friends?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
charismatic,
yes,
charming. But when it came
yes.
to your mother, this other side came out. Okay, interesting stuff. And can I just ask? I know we're diverting a little bit because there's a lot to go into. But with your nan, what was your relationship like with your nan?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
What was your relationship like? With your grandma, your nan.
So, the relationship with my grandmother was she was caring, but she would work the heck out of us. She always found a chore or a task for us to complete. Um, I, in hindsight, I know now that she was doing it for a reason. She wanted to teach me some responsibility, but at the time, being a child, Lord have mercy. It's like every time I turned around, I had something to do. Take out the garbage can, wash the dishes,
Yeah.
vacuum the carpet, clean the windows. I felt
Mm,
like a slave. I was like, hold on,
yeah.
this is not what's supposed to be going on at grandmother's house,
Yeah.
or
So
maybe it is.
if
Um,
your grandma raised your dad, and then he ended up being in the army, so that regimented programming and conditioning. Absolutely. So, and another one, mate. With your mother, um, did you still have contact with her? Did you still see her and your sister?
no, not at all.
Right.
So So after we moved out of my grandmother's house into the efficiency, we didn't stay in the
Mm,
efficiency for too long. We stayed
right.
in the efficiency for a couple of months. We lost that place. Then we had to move into another. We moved into a room of another house, which was down the street from the efficiency. After a couple of months, we lost that place as well because, my father being an addict, it was hard for him to have revenue constantly coming in. He was no longer in the service, so he had little odds and ends as far as jobs were concerned, and he started washing cars. Well, with the drug abuse, it got more and more out of control day by day. So we ended up losing both of our places that we had the opportunity to stay in, and then we ended up living on the streets of Miami.
Right. Okay. You just jumped the big part there. So from having a home,
Mhm.
then the street. So I don't know what it was like. I don't know what year this was at. But if that happened in the UK, this we have a thing called social services. I'm sure
Right,
you have a similar thing there. So does
right.
the government not come in and say, well, this child's vulnerable? What happened in that scenario?
Well. So here's the thing. As far as like the main organization that would be concerned about where
Hmm.
I was living would be our school system.
Right.
And
Okay.
on record, my grandmother's address was constantly being used to register me for school.
Ah.
So
Right.
so therefore, social services had no idea what was going on because everything was registered under my grandmother's address.
Right. But did your dad get a court order for you to look after you? I don't know if you'll know this. Who was your main guardian? Was it your grandma, or was it your father?
No, it was my father. It was
Right.
my father. But
Okay.
everything tracked back to my grandmother's house as far as our place
Right.
of residence.
Okay.
So therefore, like any support that we ended up getting from the government as far as like food stamps and things of that nature, it went to my grandmother's house.
Right.
And my father would go over there, pick it up, and then go about his business.
So let me ask you, mate. So this you've got this you. You're only a little kid.
Hmm.
What's the routine like? So you go to school.
Hmm.
I'm talking about when you're living with your dad. You go into school. How does that work? Is your dad always there to pick you up? Are you getting fed properly?
So my so every day after school, my father would meet me at a local park
Hmm.
for the most part,
Right.
starting out. And when he would meet me at the park, well, he would tell me, "All right, after school, meet me at this park," and then we would go out and do what we need to do for the rest of the evening. And sometimes, as time progressed, sometimes when he wouldn't show up, based on routine, I would know what to do. I would know where to go. Because with that military mindset, he had trained me to be able to take care of myself for the time being until he was able to uh, snap out of his drug trance.
And
So, so for the most part, like I said, we had a routine. I would get out of school. He would come pick me up, and we walked everywhere. If we didn't walk, we took public transportation because we didn't have a car either. We lost, like when I say we lost everything, we lost everything. Our clothes, we had to keep our clothes bagged up and placed in certain hiding areas so no one could find them. So it was that bad.
and how old were you at this time?
9 years old. So from ages 9 through 13, we lived on the street.
Jesus Christ.
Now, and during this time, to add insult to injury, I also had deficiencies with reading, academics, and things of that nature because when I was in class, I couldn't focus. My main motivation for going to school every day was free breakfast and free lunch that was supplied by the school. While I was in class, I kept thinking about, all right, what am I going to do when I leave school? Um, if it's raining outside, I need to think about getting from point A to point B if my father's not at the park when I leave school, or um, if we have a day off of school, or if we have the weekend coming up, or if we have a major holiday coming up, what am I prepared to do in order to make sure that I'm fed if school is not open? So oftentimes my dad also taught me how to go into various service stations or gas stations and take snacks and food and things of that nature without getting caught. So for all of those years we were on the street, I never I did what I had to do, but I was never caught. Um, Taking food or taking anything that I needed in order to survive. For the most part, my dad always found ways to get money in order to make sure that I had some type of nourishment. But for those occasions where he couldn't do so, we would go to the local KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we would go into the dumpsters and pull food out and take it back to one of the various spots that we slept in, and that would be our nourishment for that evening.
This is crazy. Literally, you're a little kid and you're being walking around the streets, and this is happening for all these years.
Yeah. And
Bloody
no one and no one ever stopped me and questioned me. None of my teachers ever asked me any questions about my well-being. And I think that was the most disheartening thing. The most disheartening thing about all of it was it seemed like no one else was concerned about my personal well-being at the time. And after a few years, you grow accustomed to your circumstances.
mm.
And you either let it destroy you or you just embrace it and keep it moving. I embraced it and kept it moving.
But again, that's your coping mechanism. And again, you're seeing it even now speaking. You're sort of playing it off like, oh, well, I just had to. Even now, you're not making excuses for it, but your brain sort of, well, I had to just get on with it. But when someone like me or people are watching, like, whoa, 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 do you not realize how vulnerable you were? And that the teachers didn't pick up on it. So when you were going into school, I'm assuming your cleanliness, if you're on the streets, they must know that this kid's coming to school, he's dirty.
You would think,
Bloody
but
hell.
going through it, being the one that went through it, it was it was definitely disheartening. No one said a thing. I mean, well, kids, you know how kids are. Kids are
Yeah.
cruel
Yeah.
sometimes. Kids make jokes and comments and things of that nature. But other than that, none of the adults said a word because I was quiet in class. I
Yeah.
was one of those kids that I didn't want to make any waves because I didn't want anyone to pay too much attention to me where they started to ask questions.
Mm.
Because initially, when we ended up on the street, if an adult would have asked me some questions, I probably would have poured my heart out to them. But after a couple of years, you learn to keep your mouth shut and not let everybody in your personal business and keep it moving.
Do you know friends at school? You had friends at school. Just,
I'm gonna say this. I
yeah.
didn't have friends in school. I had one or two real, like true friends,
Mm.
but for the most part, that was about it. And even those friends, they weren't aware of what was going on.
So when
They
you
they
when they'd say want to come out and play with you and ask you where you lived, how would you get around that?
I would tell them I live with my grandmother.
Right.
And as far as going out and play, from time to time, I would go out, you know, I would go out and I would go to wherever they lived and play street football
Mm.
for a minute or two. Especially if my father wasn't already at the park, I would just walk all the way to whatever neighborhood they lived in, play a little bit, and then go back to the park and wait on my father. And if my father didn't get there within by the time it got dark, then I would go down, you know, to one of our various spots
Jesus
and
Christ.
just relax. Now there was a laundromat that I frequented a lot that I used to sit in and watch television. And that's where I used to watch television. I used to watch basketball games. I used to watch a lot of the sitcoms that were out. And I just used to just sit there and just watch TV. No one questioned me at all. The people that worked in the laundry room, I mean, not the laundry room, the people that worked at the laundromat, they didn't ask any questions. You know, they just let me be, which was strange.
It's
Like in
very
hindsight, now looking back on it, it was strange because I was doing all of these things and no adults asked anything. I wasn't the biggest kid in the world, but knowing what I know now, if I would ever see a kid out and about, I would start asking questions based on my
mm.
experiences.
Yeah. Well, you can see it now. You can spot it instantly. You've got that sense now. What the hell? I can't. It's unreal. It's like no one can see you. You got this little kid.
Right,
If I see a little kid walking around on the street,
right,
automatically you think, "Hey, well, that's a bit weird." And there's a little 8 year old just walking around, and
right.
there's thousands of people driving past, and they just see the same kid. People are not stupid; they see with their eyes, or maybe are they ignorant? They're just, oh, I don't want to get involved. I don't get it.
But in that area, in the Miami, Florida area,
Mm,
people are so caught up into what's going on because everyone has it. No, not everyone has.
mm,
Well, I'll take that back. Everyone has their own things that they're dealing with.
right.
Um, where I'm from, they tend to keep to themselves and mind their own business. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because in that environment, if you're the nosy type or you're the type that you don't know how to mind your own business,
Yeah.
you could potentially get hurt.
Jesus.
So people tend to just, stick to the business that pays them.
On a side note, mate, I'm from the north. I'm obviously from England. I'm from the north of England, and England's only a little island. Well, isn't it really? And so you got north. So I lived where the Beatles, the band, the
Right.
Beatles. I'm sort of that area. I live up there, right? And then you've got down south, which isn't far. That's London, which is probably 5 hours in a car.
Mhm.
But if I go down to London, it's completely different. And like you said, everyone's locked in their own little world. They live in the mind because it's so overpopulated. But here, I could go and get a bus, and the person standing next to me waiting for the bus, will tell me their life story. It's just the way it is. Northerners are just very friendly. I don't know why that is, but I'm from this world. But when I went down to London, I felt like an alien. I was like, what? Why? I spoke to someone. I was outside an hotel and I smoked at the time. I was having a cigarette. I went, all right, mate, to the next person. And they looked at me like I was going to mug them. They went, oh, and they went, what's your intention? I'm like, what? I've never been spoken to like that. If I say hello to someone, they go, all right, mate. Because that to me is normal. But again, where you're living in Miami, because I don't know Miami, it's everyone's living in their own little reality, so they're not interested in, they're not aware, they're not conscious, are they? So you get this little boy, and he's walking around, no one can see it, no one's paying attention to it. But God, that's crazy. I always thought Miami was quite a wealthy area. Am I getting that wrong?
Well, well, there's a few there's a few areas in the Miami in the city of Miami that are wealthy, but those weren't the parts where I was in. See, oftentimes people mention Miami and they get this misconception that it's just South Beach. South Beach is one of the prominent areas that a lot of tourists go to. I during that time frame when I was on the street with my father, we never went to South Beach. I didn't even know what South Beach was until I got into high school. And so to go, well, when I went through everything that I went through, I want to discuss, or I want to tell you all how I was able to make it out of that situation, because being on the streets was one traumatic experience altogether, but there was more to come. That's definitely mentioned
Right, I
in.
know, and I'm smiling not because I'm excited because I want to hear it, but it's upsetting because I feel sorry for that little boy, because if I saw you, I'd pay attention, and a lot of people would. Before we go to this next part, okay, we've only got an hour. We've got half an hour left. Don't worry. Okay, we might have to do a part two because this is
Yeah.
we're only scratching the surface, obviously, but we're digging deep into it, aren't we, mate? Okay, I just want to ask people. I want to say at home. I'm in England and Fernando's in America, but I'm asking you guys, you've got to question things. You've got to question everything in this world. Do not take anything at face value. It's like no one questioned why that little boy is walking around on his own, did they? They just minded their own business, which was the worst thing to do, because if they saw him, they would have saved him. And what you're about to hear wouldn't have happened to this now man, but still this young boy, and it has affected his life. He hasn't. I'm not putting words in your mouth, mate. You don't. You carry this stuff with you. It doesn't leave you, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I want to ask you at home, why do you think? I'm talking to the audience. Why do you think that no one could see him, and he was there from the age of 8 years old? He's there walking around on the streets. He's going to school. No one knew. He's sitting there watching telly. The staff workers aren't thinking, that's a bit odd. Where's his mum and dad? They just Put your thoughts. What's going on? Why was he invisible? You can't make yourself invisible. Not a kid. I want to know your thoughts. Please put it in the comments. Let's get back to this, because I know this is... I really appreciate you saying this, mate. And I do not underestimate that. I know you're very brave. But again, for what you're doing and speaking out like this, I know it takes a lot, mate. And I genuinely appreciate it. But if you carry on now, mate, and just tell us what happened next.
Well, when I reached 13 years of age, I had already accepted my fate. I've accepted that this was my life. I was going to be on the streets forever. There was no one coming to save me. The teachers didn't care. No one cared. But then my father got arrested randomly. Well, what I thought to be random. So I was sitting at the park after middle school, and I was thinking to myself, "Hey, wow, my father's not here. All right, well, I have to start this long walk." Um, but then a van pulls up, and then a Honda pulls up behind it. So I'm looking, and I was like, "Wow, okay, this van looks familiar." And I knew it. I knew who it was. I knew it was my father's friend that he used to wash cars with. And when he got out of the van and walked toward me, I had this startled look on my face, like, "What's going on?" So while he was walking toward me, I looked at the Honda that was behind his van, and it was my father's brother, my uncle. So I had a million and one questions as soon as I saw them. And the first thing I asked my father's friend was, "Where's my father?" So it looked like he had a lot to say, but he didn't really want to say it. He just asked me, "Hey, listen, do you want to come with me, or do you want to go with your uncle? Your father won't be able to come get you." So I thought about it, and I chose my uncle because, he's family. And when I got into my uncle's vehicle, I had so many questions, but I was terrified because I didn't know what was going on with my father. I didn't know if he died. I didn't know if something happened to him. He got hit by a vehicle or anything, Um, Come to find out, he was arrested for possession of narcotics, and he was, currently in jail. So with this one phone call, he decided to call my grandmother, which is his mother, and my grandmother called my uncle, and that's when my uncle got in contact with my father's friend to try to figure out what was the next move as far as I was concerned. So, to make a long story short with that portion, I did end up talking to my father while I was at my uncle's house, and he told me that, "Hey, listen, I need to get clean. You're gonna stay with your uncle for now." And I asked him, "Well, how long am I going to be here?" And he told me, he was like, "I don't know, as long as it takes." So telling a 13-year-old that, you can imagine all the things that were going through my head at the time. I was totally confused. I was like, "Wait, hold on, wait. You mean to tell me all of a sudden I'm gonna be living with my uncle in a house with his son?" Okay. So I went through all the feels and all the emotions of that because it seemed like my world was turned upside down yet again. Because I already had a routine on the street. I had different things that I would do in order to ensure that I was taken care of, even though I was on the street. I was a creature of habit, so to speak. So with them throwing a monkey wrench in the routines, I was just taken aback. And it actually took me a while to get accustomed to living in a house or living with someone, especially that wasn't my father.
Oh, bloody hell. It's hard to like sort of digest all this. Like you said, the emotions. Like you say, any other person would be, you're very resilient, or you're very good, and this is a testament to you, because the pain that you must be even now, mate. It must be. As a child, only you know what that's like. I can only imagine what that's like. I can't feel the emotions. You've suddenly like, where's my dad? What's going on? You've got no other pillar of strength. You've just got this sense of insecurity. Where am I going? And now you're placed with your uncle from being on the streets, and then their family members are all be like, I know they're your cousins, but they'll be like, well, the dynamics have changed, but for you, you're going to be extremely insecure because it's not your fault because you're a little kid. You don't, and now you're placed there. It's and your mum didn't reach out to you. No one came and says, right,
So so apparently, and this is what I found out once I moved in with my uncle, and I found this out from my cousin, which is my uncle's son. My mother would occasionally call my grandmother to find out what was going on with me. And she would always tell her, "Oh, he's fine. They're fine. They live here with me. They're not available right now, or they're out and about, or whatever the case may be." So she was providing a cover for my dad for whatever reason, and my mother was led to believe that things were okay. Now, I do remember there were a few times where we called my mother collect on a payphone so we can talk during like the holiday. But that was only a few times while we were on the streets. It wasn't anything consistent. It wasn't every single year. It wasn't every other month. It was totally random.
did you
So I,
never?
I would say,
Sorry, mate, to interrupt you. I do apologise.
okay, go ahead.
It's because
No worries.
it's such a big story that you're telling. Um, Going back to that little boy, did you not feel at the time to just say, "Mom, I'm scared. Can I come home, or can you come and get me?" Or
Not at all, because when I would finally talk to her those few times when we were on the streets, I was told by my father, "Hey, listen, we live with your grandmother if she asks." And his word was law. Like I said,
yeah,
even though he was addicted to drugs, he was still my father. So
mm,
I didn't want to do anything that would cross him. I didn't want to do anything that would put him in further jeopardy or myself.
yeah,
So I just stuck to the lie, you know. Yeah,
yeah.
we live with my
Your loyalty was to your dad, your father,
right,
and
right,
that's it. And
right.
okay, so what happened? What happened next?
So moving into my uncle's house was different to say the least. It was a blessing. It was definitely a blessing because the stability that I needed, he provided. The foundation that I needed, he provided. Um, his son, which is a couple of years older than me, was definitely a big inspiration for me to turn it all around academically. Like I said, I was behind in academics to the point where I don't even know to this day how I was able to make it from grade level to grade level without being retained. But that speaks volumes when it comes down to the educational system at that time. If you were quiet and you didn't make any waves and you gave the appearance of doing
Mm,
work, they would pass you along.
yeah, unfortunately,
So
you see that. Yeah.
I would have to I would have to like spend a lot of time in the library. I started off with like the basic Cat in the Hat books, the
Mm,
small elementary level books, and
yeah.
I would slowly but surely start trying to play catch up.
Right.
Now, I'm going to tell you something remarkable, right? And everyone that I speak to, and every time I tell my story, uh, I tell people this, and they look at me with amazement. I went from an eighth grader, barely knowing how to read at all, not knowing how to do anything as far as math is concerned, unless it dealt with money, to going into high school, still struggling a little bit, my freshman year, my ninth grade year, to catching all the way up to the point where I earned the right to be in all advanced and honors classes by 10th grade.
That's so. What? What do you think that was then? What from?
Th- that same determination, that
Mm,
same perseverance, that same nonstop ability to overcome adversity that I
mm,
had as a youth when I was younger on the street,
yeah.
I incorporated that into my academic success. I wanted to be successful as much as I wanted to breathe.
Right. And do you
I
think?
didn't want to be picked on. I didn't
Yeah.
want people to look at me as less than, and I never used my story as an excuse. As a matter of fact, when I was in school, when I was in high school,
Mm,
when my uncle got me off of the street, I didn't tell anybody my story. I kept it to myself. As a matter of fact, I didn't have any, I didn't have the luxury to sit there and even think about the things that I went through, nor the trauma, because I had to play catch up, not only academically, but athletically as well, because I wanted to play sports. So I went out for many of the different athletic teams that we had at my high school. Um, I started to gain a little social life a little bit, so I didn't have time to sit there and feel sorry for myself. I didn't have the luxury to sit there and say, woe is me. I had to do what I had to do because in the back of my mind, I figured living with my uncle was temporary. I felt that at any moment things can go bad again. So I have to be able to have something that I earned while I was at his house under his supervision to take with me wherever I end up from there.
mm. It's like none of your environment. They always say the environment makes the person, but in your case, it's like no, no, no. That didn't rub off on you at all. You were kind of your own person always because you're nothing like your uncle. I don't know your uncle, but or your dad especially, or your mother, or your grandma. You're not like them. You're the complete opposite. You've got that drive to desire to want more. And again, by what you said, is that come from suffering, that desire.
Well, I will say this, and I will say this, and I do have to push back a little bit.
Mm,
I am I I am a little bit like my uncle because my uncle he gave a lot. He sacrificed a lot for me to move in with them. Um, and the type of person is still to this day, he would give anyone the shirt off of his back, and I've witnessed it. So noticing how he was and how he was giving and how he was so serious about family, I incorporated a lot of that into my life. I became a product of what he was. He was a teacher. I'm a teacher. You know, he mentored a lot of kids. I mentor kids. So a lot of the characteristics that he had, it rubbed off on me based off of his generous spirit.
fantastic. And so then, when you've gone through high school, life's getting good now. You're getting an education. You're getting self respect. What happened then from that point?
Well, I ended up I ended up playing sports. I
Mm,
ended up being pretty decent. Um, some sports not so much,
mm.
and then I ended up applying to go to college. I made it to college. I applied for a lot of different grants and things of that nature, and I was able to go to school without coming out of pocket for anything when I first started college. And that was a whole um, learning curve because I was used to essentially being on my own in a negative environment. But then now I'm on my, now I'm moving to college and it's a positive environment, but it's different, So I had the chance to reinvent myself, so to speak.
Can I ask you, Fernando, how do you adapt? So from being basically brought up on the street as a
Mhm.
young little kid, then suddenly you're around so social skills, interacting with other people, and you were naturally shy and quiet as a kid. Then suddenly to be outgoing, be your own person, do well in school, and progress to such a high level when everything was against you, you managed to do it. So what is that? Is that a mindset? Is that a spirit?
Well, I learned on being on the street, I learned how to kind of blend into my surroundings, so to speak. So I became a master at blending in. I became a master at conforming to whatever's going on around me. Um, and then when I moved in with my uncle, I did the same thing. I conformed to what was going on around me. My uncle and my cousin were big on sports. I became, infatuated with sports. They were big on um, speaking with or dealing with females, on a social level. I did the same thing. I tried to mirror what was going on because I felt that, hey, as long as I can blend in, then I would get some type of notoriety or people would notice me.
That's amazing. And then when you finish college, so things are going up now, aren't they? Your life's getting better
Yeah.
and better.
Yes. So
And
I had a previous career before I started teaching. I was actually a probation officer.
wow,
Um, and then I transitioned from probation officer to an educator, because there needed to be more role models in the educational system. So I've been an educator now since 2007, so
wow,
18 plus years. Yeah.
Jesus. And the thing is, some people go to college to learn to be a probation officer. You don't need to go to college. You did, but you didn't need to because you've been through that road. So I imagine that the offenders who got out of prison or jail, they call it jail in America, don't they?
Yeah.
But I imagine they could relate to you because you can see them, because you can recognize them, and you're not alien to them. So you've got that emotional connection towards them because you get it because you were around that environment that most of them come from. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So then you stop doing that, and then now you're a teacher.
Yes.
And is that where's that? Is that at some sort of school or?
So I was a teacher at a couple of schools. I was
Mm.
a English teacher at a couple of
Wow.
schools. And now I'm a resource teacher where I train other teachers in
Jesus.
classroom management and building positive relationships with their students. You see,
Jesus.
it's funny how life works, right?
That's amazing. Do you know when people say you can do anything when you put your mind to it? And they go, no, you can't. Yeah, you can because you've just done it. So your life doesn't make sense. It's like
Right,
math, isn't it? One add one equals two, right?
right,
Little boy born on the streets full of trauma doesn't equal a teacher who teaches teachers and has
right,
a deep empathy and understanding of child psychology and got compassion and spiritual love. Don't make sense.
right.
But obviously, you've just explained and shown that you can literally do anything. So what does that tell you about us as human beings? That's phenomenal. Again, we guys, I know we could go into this a lot. It feels like we're rushing it, but I'm conscious that you haven't got much time with us, unfortunately, because we've done nearly an hour, and I know you're busy. And yeah, so unfortunately, I think that'll be the end of this part. But don't worry, right? Because we haven't covered anything really when you think about it. We're just talking a little bit about certain points of it. But the good news is, Fernando, how this happened is because you've written a book, And it's not a little book. It's not going to take you an hour to read it. It's going to take you quite a few hours. 18 hours, is it, on average, to read a big, thick book? How many pages is it?
Well, it's 312 pages, and I guarantee it won't take that long by the way that I constructed the book.
Right,
It's a very easy read. I will say that much.
right. And it goes into a lot of detail about that. That's amazing. That is amazing. When I read your biopic, I thought, okay, and I know, I'm not focusing on the child aspect of it because I understand child psychology, and I know what the reality of it is. I know what the outcome is, because I work with social services. Blah blah blah. It's not about me, but I've got a deep understanding into psychology, and I see the patterns, and you can sort of predict it. It's, so with someone like Fernando, if I saw a young boy like that, guarantee 100% you can see the outcome. He's going to prison, or he's going to be a drug addict. He's going to die. You can see it, right? So, but what you've done, you've sort of gone against nature. It doesn't bloody make sense. You should write a book on how to change your paradigms. Now, paradigms is a big word, right? How to change your mind, because everything I'm talking about, you know this anyway. If you've got to understand, Fernando's brain is a baby. All that information he's absorbing, he doesn't know if it's true or false. He sees his dad beat his mum up. He sees these horrific things that he's not gone into. They'll be in the book on the streets. The fear. He's on the reptilian brain mode, fight or flight. It's all survival. And all that's gone into his unconscious mind. And he's still been able to go and control it and think, right, I'm the boss, and be conscious of his unconscious, which is like, it's like, how'd you bloody do that? So he's programmed his brain. Talking about you here. Sorry, mate. Like, you're not here. But I'm talking about psychology. Our brain is conditioned, and Fernando's brain has been conditioned like everyone else's, but he's sort of gone in there and reprogrammed himself. How the bloody hell's he done it? I'm telling you, mate, if you've written a book about how to change your mind, I'd buy it, because you know what you're talking about, because the proof is in the pudding, mate. That's amazing. And do you know what? When I always think about, when you tell me this story and I'm envisioning this boy, I see him in this traumatic, horrible, toxic environment, but he's like a light bulb, and his light has never gone out, and that's why he survived it. That's why no one picked up on it, because he didn't see a suffering boy. They saw a little light. It's like an angel walking through hell. They said, well, he's got nothing to worry about because it bounces off him. And maybe that's what it was. You were vibrating an energy, a spirit. I'm not trying to get deep, but you were doing something, mate, because people couldn't see it. They couldn't see it in you. Wow. That's amazing. You've got to get this book. What's the book called, Fernando?
So the book is titled "Perseverance Over Pain: A Survivor's Story," and it's available on all major platforms.
You've got to buy this book, man. This isn't a sponsor, right? I'm not told to say this. You've just said a little bit about what Fernando said, what he shared a little bit, and we've had to speed over it because we haven't got time. So can you imagine how much depth is in this book? Go and buy it, and you'll learn something. You'll learn about yourself. Go on, mate.
Travis, we definitely have to do a part 2.
I know, yeah. Do you know what? I'm a bit nervous because I think the part 2 is going to go right. We're going to go really into it. Okay. Again, we've just skimmed over, but we're going to have to do a part 2. Right. I'm going to have to go in a minute. Well, I'm not. I'll talk to you all day, but I know Fernando's busy because now he's got a life. He's not roaming the streets. He's got things to do. Again, thanks for all your comments. Put all your comments in as well. What do you think about this? Now you realise that anything is possible. You can do anything you want. But thank you, and thank you to our guest, obviously, the one and only Fernando. Buy his book. Buy his book. You won't be disappointed. You're going to learn something. You don't have to go through trauma. Read this book and you'll find the answer. But Fernando, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you for your time, man.
Thank you, mate. I'll put the link in as well. I don't want to say goodbye to him. I feel bad because I still see him as this little boy. But he's all right. He's thriving now. He's laughing. He's going to go and change the world. He's teaching kids. He is literally what an angel looks like. A good man. A good man who come from bad. But he's not bad. He's got a good heart. And that's power, isn't it, mate? That's really power. So thank you so much for watching this video again. Thank you to Fernando, and you've got his book on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description so you can buy it, have a look at it, put a review on it, put your comments in there. Think about what he's saying. So when you think your life's bad and you think, oh, poor me, think about that Fernando when he was a little boy walking on the streets at 8 years old. Can you imagine that? But anyway, it all worked out in the end, and what's going to happen in his future, it's only going to get better. Until next time, guys, take care, look after yourself, and be yourself.